hands meet hands and hearts unite. Through storm and calm we find the light. A place to stand, a place to grow. With faith and truth is all we know. Liberty on Main Street, where hope runs free. In every step, in you and me. Together we rise, together we keep the flame of freedom that never sleeps.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty on Main Street.
Through every challenge, high or low, we hold the...
Well, hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and cool libertarian kids on the new block out there on Liberty on Main Street. So Mike Church here, show here on Liberty on Main Street. We are going to be doing a weekly show here. Maybe we'll be doing more than a weekly show. I kind of like the Trump attitude. I don't know. Candace, are we going to be doing a weekly, or can we get other shows going here? So we will be here at least once a week, and am happy to be here with the original Mark Z and the Zester here. We'll talk about that in just a second here. The way this show is going to go is I'm going to talk about things that that are important to me, and I think that they are important to you. Now, don't let the gray hair and the tie and all that fool you. I'm not just like drawing on the wall here, this wallflower that you think is going to go so William F. Buckley on you, and is going to bore you to tears the way you're going to be reaching for the dial and saying, oh my God, where did Mark and Zester get this character from? No, that's not going to be it at all. So we will talk about things that no one else will talk about, and I don't need guests. I love having guests, but I don't need them to flesh out the arguments. One of the arguments that we'll make today and that we'll talk about is about this H-1B visa nonsense, which I know is near and dear to the hearts of almost every libertarian out there, because you think in your theoretical world that free trade, untrammeled free trade, nobody gets tariffed ever in the history of the world, no tariffs ever, everything is an open border, because the more people that we have coming in, the more exchange of goods and ideas, the rising tide lifts all boats. Sorry, that's not the way the game is played. And you know what? Prior to the modern era, and libertarian think tank thought, if that was ever tried anywhere, it didn't work. And you know what? If you try it here, come closer. Guess what? It's not going to work. It's not going to work the way you think it is going to work in your theoretical little think tank. Now, I'm perfectly comfortable with having this conversation with someone like my friend Jeffrey Tucker, who he and I would probably disagree with this on this on, or my friend Ron Paul, or any of the other libertarians that I know, which is what makes the difference between the King Dude and many of them. Russell Kirk set this up way back in the day, and the difference between conservatives, or conservatives, as Ted Cruz would drone on, conservatives and libertarians. He wrote all this up in an essay called Chirping Sectaries. You can read it on my website at mikechurch.com. It's free of charge. And even though we do agree on some things, and it seems like we're in the same universe, we're really not. And I think that many of the libertarian theoretical ideas are great thought starters, and I have so many good friends that have such great thoughts. But when it comes down to actually implementing and being practical with it, for the most part, it's always a theoretical, which is almost a cool position to be in, because you go, yeah, well, if we ever got elected and we ever got in charge, bucko, you'd see how it work. What a great idea. I mean, what a great program, because it's never going to happen. So your theory is never going to get tried. And because it's never going to get tried, it's 100% theoretically bound to work. So if you're wondering, if you've wandered in here going like, ooh, cool, Liberty on Main Street, there's going to be libertarians and stuff there. There will be, and perhaps we will talk to some of them. But that's how the Mike Church is going to go, show is going to go. And I'm not going to go after libertarians. I just thought, since in our talking with people that put this channel together, that they think that they're going to get good libertarian traffic, I would just warn my libertarian bros out there what's coming. And no, it doesn't mean we should be enemies of any sort. We just have thoughtful disagreements. You know, they used to, back in the day, they used to call these things disputations. I tell my people, my friends all the time, and some people that, you know, because we have a chat room with the Mike Church Show. It's very, very active. You should check it out someday. crusadechannel.com/chat. I'm on every weekday morning, 6 to 9 a.m. right here on YouTube. Look me up, Crusade Radio Network. I tell them in the chat room, like, guys, no, it would be so boring if we had 100% agreement. Life, you would literally be more entertained by watching leftard or conservative paint dry than you would be by listening to 100% hegemonic agreement among conservatives or any from any political persuasion for that matter. So no, we're not going to do that here. We will have good shows, good time. I will broach a lot of topics that many of you are going to agree with, and you're going to be surprised. And you're going to be shocked to hear some of the things that you hear that you're going to agree with. But before we get to any of that, today this is being cut today. How do you like that old school? All right, cut. No, I'm kidding. It's being cut today. So back in the day, we used to actually record things on tape. You would physically, you'd put it in a gizmo and you'd run it through a track and you scrub it. This is where the term scrubbing audio comes from. And you could be going through the tape. Okay, what I just said was, and you get to the point on the tape, and then you take a little razor blade and you cut it, and then you go to the next part on the tape where you want to cut it out, and then you take a little piece of magnetic audio tape, splice tape, and you splice it right over it. No one will ever know. Anyways, that's where the term cut comes from, back in the old school days. Speaking of old school days, I wanted to have as very special now, as a very special first show guest, just so we can get inside the mind of the creators of Liberty on Main Street. I wanted to bring on the founders of the channel, the original Mark Z, not the compromise, kinky-headed, zit-faced second draft, the one that runs and ruined Facebook and ran and ruined so many lives. Not that Mark Z, the original Mark Z, and his protege, the Zester here, so they can talk a little bit with me about Liberty on Main Street and what all of you listeners and viewers out there can expect. Guys, you want to hop on into the conversation here? Good to see you. How goes it? By the way, it's snowing in Louisiana right now. I'm in a blizzard watch south of I'm just a little south of I-10, and I am under a blizzard watch right now as we record this.
Mike, did you not go to church on Sunday? I mean, who's
no,
being
I did.
punished here?
No, I actually did. As a matter of fact, last week I went twice. I went on Friday and Sunday. So, all right. So
that's the reason you're only getting 6 inches.
You guys are in the paradise somewhere in an undisclosed location in the Caribbean, so you're not going to be having to worry about any snow. But I wanted to talk to you guys about tell us about Liberty on Main Street. What can viewers expect?
Well, thank you, Mike, so much for joining us on this one. And the idea with Liberty on Main Street is that very often we have gotten into our echo chambers. We're hearing the same facts from the same talking heads essentially every day. We're not getting a lot of information that really affects the average person on Main Street. We get a whole bunch of talk about bankers and stockbrokers, and we hear all about how the politicians are doing well or doing awful, but we very rarely hear about how it's affecting us. And so we wanted to break that echo chamber. We wanted to bring in a bunch of different people who do have very different opinions. And so each day of the week, most likely the opinion on Liberty on Main Street will not be the same. We'll have to do some crossovers so that we can have some healthy discourse and debates over these disparities in belief. But we think that's what the world needs. And that's what the internet needs right now, is we need to break out from hearing the same story. And we need to hear about what actually matters.
And part of, I mean, and the common sense approach, Mike. You were talking earlier about free trade, etc. I used to be one of the biggest free trade supporters out there. NAFTA, GAFTA, give it to me. And now I've seen firsthand the destruction of that, the destruction of the manufacturing base, the uncertainty it brings when you destroy a manufacturing base. I mean, we can't make our own pharmaceuticals. Living in Puerto Rico, you really see the devastation of free trade and NAFTA. Once an economic powerhouse that produced tremendous amounts of food, gone. It was cheaper to get it from someplace south of the border where labor was even cheaper, where they didn't care about environmental concerns. Pulling out of the Paris Climate Accord. You look at China, it's not a level playing field, so you compensate. So we need to have those common sense discussions. It's not about what sounds good, feels good. It's about what works, and what works for people on Main Street all around the world, not just the United States. Every country, every town, they have their Main Street, and we want to get to talk to the people, and we need to have some generational conversations. Boomers, Xers, millennials, Zers, whatever. We've got to get somewhat on the same page. There's going to be differences. Every generation looks at the one younger and goes, "Oh my God, this is the worst generation ever." And the millennial, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to look at the next one, "Man, this is the worst generation ever." And they're going to look at the next one, "This is the worst generation ever." So we need to have these conversations so that we can apply common sense on Main Street.
One of the things whenever I hear Main Street, I think of the main streets that I've actually been to. Right down the road from here, we have Hammond, Louisiana. And it's a college town. Southeastern Louisiana State University is there. My daughter went there, the Fighting Lions. But on Main Street, they actually have, I think it actually is Main Street. You have a restaurant, you have a little grocery store, you have a liquor store that kind of doubles as a bar. There is a church, there is a pool hall, there is an antique store, there is a railroad track that runs through, crosses Main Street right there. And they actually have an old school, they left it there, they have the old school cupola. Oh, for all you kiddies out there, you're going like, what is it? What's a cupola? What a cupcake? No, a cupola. It's a cover. Just kind of a roof with benches under it. They actually have an old school cupola that runs through there. So I've actually seen, in the last 6 weeks, a Main Street. Now, some of you may see it every day. And I think one of the things that I admire most about Donald John Trump is that, you know what? Trump could go to that Main Street and would be just as comfortable talking to the modern day version of Sam Drucker as he would be talking to someone that is his Treasury Secretary. So I think we have a very special moment in time, and I agree. I'm not so sure it's a golden age. Maybe it's a silver age. Maybe it's a bronze age. Or maybe it's even worse. Maybe it's a pewter age. But at least it'll be an age, because we just escaped the age of Biden. But it goes back further than Biden, guys. I trace this all the way back. This goes back to Clinton. And it may even go back to Lyndon Baines Johnson. And it may even go back before that to Franklin Delano Obama Roosevelt. So they have been working on assembling this deep state monstrosity thing for near 7 decades, pretty much at the end of World War II. The pieces that they could put together. There was no superpower that could actually oppose the United States at the time. And we acted like it, and we experimented and did awful things to our own people. I think that this government is responsible for some of the greatest atrocities in the history of the world. And I actually, and I mean this, and sincerely think that President Trump plans to bring some of them to an end. And so we'll talk about that. But Zest, I want to go back to you, Zest. We're talking about liberty on Main Street. You were giving this great dissertation. I asked you point blank. I said, so do you give Barron Trump credit for the Ute vote? The Ute vote, Trump was bragging about it yesterday as an inauguration. He won by 36 points. And you gave an answer that, I have a young lady that works for me who is a contributor on the Mike Church Show, Magdalene Rose. And I asked Magdalene the question, and she goes, no. You give the credit to Barron Trump. You said no. Why?
Well, no, I would definitely have to disagree with Barron getting the credit for that. Remember, he was also apparently the what was it, the DeFi crypto master
He is.
on some of the different paperwork that they put out, and so
Wait a minute,
I
dude.
don't
You're the
think.
crypto bro, not me. That's your domain. That is not mine. I carry cash.
But I don't think we can put that on to any one person. We can't give any one person credit. I believe that's an own goal. The left did that all to themselves because their insane policies started to actually affect the youth generations. We had 20-year-olds who said, hey, my sister is playing on the soccer field with a biological male. We had people who lost scholarships over things. We saw the rampant pursuit of DEI policies that resulted in many people who had worked extremely hard getting denied at the schools that they should have been getting admitted to. And so when you get to the point where your policies are affecting the youth generation so much, I do think the kids start to wake up. And in the millennial generation, I think we are very close to actually making that switch over from leaning left to actually leaning hard right, probably in the next couple election cycles, because we've been sold such a crap bill of goods. We're all in debt. We can't afford families. We're not getting anywhere fast. And for some of us, it's working out. But for most everyone, they're looking at the government, they're looking at the system, and they're saying, you lied to me. You told me this would work. Now I can't pay off my debts. I'm never going to own a home. And we're mad. And I think that that's really the biggest catalyst. I know that, like, everybody on the right is going to want to take credit. Somebody's going to want to say that I'm the person that secured the Amish vote in Pennsylvania, or I secured the youth vote. But in all honesty, I don't think we had all that much to do besides not screwing up. For this cycle, the left did all the work. All Trump had to do was keep pointing out the insanity of their politics, and that was all she wrote.
You mean I can't get pregnant, have a period, and a baby?
Yeah, what the hell?
I mean, I honestly feel like I'm missing out somehow here.
Like the old Monty Python skit. We are going to fight for Mark's right to have babies. Well, wait a minute, he can't have babies. He hasn't got a womb. Where's the fetus going to gestate? He's going to keep it in a box? No, I don't think you're actually
Classic.
I don't think you're actually missing out on anything. I think that we did lie to the Utes. Mark Z, original Mark Z, me and you are pretty much in the same generation. I don't think we did it intentionally. I think that we allowed the political class to kind of paint this narrative, this picture, because people like him pictures, of how this was supposed to go and how things were supposed to be. And that if you just played by the rules and did what they told you to do and went to the right university and got the right degree and then applied at the right school, mother, and then knew and hung in and fraternized, you see, with the right people, then you would be accepted into the polite society and you would rise. But as the Zester was pointing out, and you're very wise beyond your years, young man, as the Zester was pointing out, the DEI people came along, and if you're white, they don't care. It doesn't matter how smart you are. I'm going to tell you guys a quick story. My daughter, who turns 28 tomorrow, when she was going to get her biology degree at the aforementioned Louisiana State University at Hammond, or Southeastern Louisiana, she wanted to be a doctor. Her dream was to go to med school. And so she started prepping for the MCAT in the last 2 years of getting her biology degree. She actually took the MCAT when she was a junior, and she would graduate fast track in less than 4 years with not an associate's degree, a full bachelor's degree in biology, magna cum laude, no cum laude, with honors. So she started taking the MCAT when she was a junior at Southeastern, and she was right there on the bubble where they say you have to be. She was at 600, 601, somewhere in there the first time. I think it was at 601 the first time you took it. She was being told that if you're going to get into any of these highfalutin medical schools, you have to score at least a 609 or a 610. And so she actually took her own money, spent $2,000 of her own money, took a course that was supposed to bump her up anywhere from 8 to 15 points. And she spent, I don't remember how long, 6 weeks, I think, in this course pursuing this. And she got a couple of points out of it, but the score was still high enough to get into med school. But she's a single cracker white woman. And so she started learning as she started figuring out, okay, can I apply here? Some schools, some med schools wouldn't even take her application. Wouldn't even talk to her. She thought that it was just her. Well, when she moved to Massachusetts to go to work at Mass General, she was offered a job at Mass General, not as a nurse or a nurse or any like a medical job, just kind of working with the doctors. She met several young people that were still trying to get into med school. One of them was the exact same age as her. He's 28 now. She met him when she was 22, and he was from Macedonia. And he was here on a visa. He was a jet fuel genius, smart. He was scoring 610 plus on the MCAT. Young man's name was Dario. Care to guess how many cracks at getting into med school it took Dario to get in?
I'm guessing first go.
Still isn't in. Still isn't in. Will not get accepted. He is a white immigrant male and cannot get into a medical school. I told him, I'm like, dude, you'll like this, Mark, Regional Mark Z. You'll remember this. I say, what you need to do is watch the old C. Thomas Howell movie, Soul Man. And then what you need to do is you got to start taking the tanning pills. You got to fro your hair up, bro. You got to have to change that last name because that Slavic last name is not going to cut it. You need Washington or Jefferson or something like that. So you got to do a name change. You got to fro the hair up. You need to take the tanning pills, change your last name, and then mark African American on the box. Boom. You're in. And with your MCAT scores, dude, you'll be Surgeon General in 4 years. So and he was like, Mr. Mike, I could not possibly do something like that. That would be cheating. I'm like, welcome to America, brother.
Mm-hmm.
It's Chicago Bailey's. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen that Bailey's casino going to Chicago. Part of the deal was the city made them agree to a investment thing. So if you are minority or female, you're allowed to invest and get share. But
Yes.
if you are white and male, you are not allowed to invest or get a share in the company because they want to create generational wealth. I mean, that to me is a definition of misogyny and racism.
Yeah, but it's policy now, or it was policy. So I don't know how many people got the chance to follow closely the executive orders that were signed by President Trump last night, because it wasn't like the 4 or 5 that you think that you're hearing about. He didn't just do the southern border. He didn't just do the pardoning of the J6 hostages and all that was attendant to that. The executive orders that he signed are far more detailed than that, and they get into. As a matter of fact, I read them. I'm on the media list, so I'm getting an email now from the communications department inside the Trump White House. And I read the list, the complete list that they sent out of all that he signed yesterday. I'm just looking at going, this is why this guy is who he is and why he's the art of the deal. And this is why they don't get him and why he completely cleaned their clock again. Because these last 2.5 years with the persecution he's gone through, and certainly since after he won the election fair and square, and came out and said, we're not CBO, you can keep your money. We don't want it. We're running our own transition team, and you can't do anything about it. That was the smartest thing that any president has ever done to keep those bastards out. They had no idea what they were going to get hit with yesterday afternoon when he signed those the 10 orders at the Capital One Center. That was enough. They had no idea that he was going back to the Oval Office, and there were like 35 more sitting there waiting for him, including a withdrawal from the WHO. Somebody said, no, he's just trying to get a better deal. If we get the same deal China got, then we would pay the WHO $12 million. That's not going to happen. So the WHO doesn't exist without extorting the United States. And I don't think that this guy, that President Trump, is going to allow us to be extorted. He withdrew us from the Paris Accords. The price tag on that one was $1 trillion. He ended via executive order birthright citizenship. This has been a pet peeve subject of mine for pretty near 20 years. I've been talking about this. I call the 14th Amendment the Miracle Amendment. The miracle, you can, here, you want men to swim in women's sporting events? 14th Amendment. You want, here, I want some people, our viewers out there, to conceive of this idea. Let me just paint a little picture here for you. Woman is Mexican. She's 9 months pregnant. It's due date. She knows it's due date. She had, I think I feel a little bambino. I think Junior is about to come. Well, hey, mama, senora, let's go to the Rio Grande. She makes the trip to the Rio Grande. There's a pole that's in the middle of the Rio Grande. Did you know that? There's a pole that shows you owe Mexico on your Osido. This side right here, this is good old Texas American side. All she would have to do under previous policy, how insane is this? All she would have to do is to get in a boat or walk, depending on how high the water was. She could get it, or Pedro could push her in a big inner tube, like, you tube down a river on with coolers of beer and stuff with your friends. Belly button to head, Mexican side. Belly button to toe, American side. Junior is popped out on American side, now full-fledged American citizen. Original Mark Z. Does that sound insane to you?
It reminds me of an episode of South Park with Osama bin Laden.
And
Esther, you should paint this one. And I mean, if you think about it, it to me, it's a good example because it shows just how insane the concept is. Zester, you want to paint the script? It's where he comes in, SEAL Team 6 comes running in.
Yeah. So that one's actually, I believe, Family Guy, and
Family Guy.
They're doing a mock skit of the SEAL Team 6 raid on Bin Laden's compound. They're busting in the doors, shooting people. They get up, knock down the door. Osama bin Laden standing there. He puts his hands up in the air and he says, "I accept Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior," and then shot. And he immediately pops up at the pearly gates. And it is one of the funniest skits, but he barely gets it out right before.
right before they remove him from the world. Oh, I'm good now. In other words, it was never genuine. He never really cared about Jesus. Kind of like, you do have to point out the insanity of it.
so, but this is actually what I described to you as policy. They said that this is what's called birthright citizenship, and I have been arguing for 20 years. I'm like, no, it's not. That's insanity. No country in the world would do this. No country in the world does this except this one. And the only reason we do it is because we have this guilt trip put onto our heads that, oh, no, every nation is we're a nation of immigrants. We're saying if we ever stop being a nation of immigrants, if you're a nation of immigrants today, then how can you stop being a nation of immigrants? I mean, some of these arguments, the people that make them are so stupid. As someone once told me, that guy is so stupid, his head must hurt. I like the way that Mel Gibson described Kamala Harris of having the IQ of a fence post. I think he was being generous. Some of these people are so politically, historically, and practically stupid that you wonder how it is that they have gotten through life. Well, let's explore what Trump did. Trump explained exactly as he should explain the clause in the 14th Amendment that is operative, and the only one that matters is, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. That's the clause in the 14th Amendment that distinguishes someone born. All right, Zester, big, heavy language coming your way, libertarian bros. Jus soli or jus sanguinis. Do you know the difference? Jus soli, the law of the soil. Jus sanguinis, the law of blood. Nearly every European country today, and has, except for a short while, the English and the French experimented because they were at war and they had men spread out all over the world, like in the United States, pretty much stuck with jus sanguinis. That's J-U-S. That's the law of blood. What is the law of blood? That means that the original Mark Z fell in love with some woman and they had baby Zester in the United States. Doesn't really matter, though, because Mark owed allegiance to the United States. Zester's mom owed allegiance to the United States. This is how you make a natural-born citizen. Let's pretend for a moment that Mark's mother did not have allegiance. Let's just say she was an immigrant. Oh, I don't know, from some Caribbean island. Oh, how far-fetched is that, Mike? It's really out there. And just say that Mark marries said woman, and now she's not naturalized, she's not a citizen yet, but little Zester's still born. Mark, jus sanguinis, because your paternity, your citizenship, and this is a rule in the world all the way up until today. You may argue about it if you want. You're going to lose in international court almost everywhere. Your citizenship and the loyalty or the allegiance that you owe to a country comes from the dad. It's a paternal thing. It never has been maternal, ever in the history of the world. Even at times when large bodies and large percentages of the male population were killed in war, they still stuck with the jus sanguinis. Well, what we're talking about here is complete and total 100% jus soli. You can sneak into the United States and pop a kid out. It's an American citizen. No, it's not. No, it's not. Whoever the father is a citizen of that country. What President Trump did last night with that executive order is basically put an end to the belly button all the way to the head on the Mexican side of the Rio Grande, and the belly button all the way to the toes on the American side. Kid comes out, well, you know where the kid came out at, and that's an American citizen. Trump put an end to that. He also explained jus soli and jus sanguinis. This is a new day. Folks, things have changed. Zester, you're much younger. Would you agree that post November 5th, do you feel is there less weight on the shoulders, or people have an extra pep in the step?
Oh, no, absolutely. I know me personally to a very large degree, but I think even just for the average person, there was a change in the society going up towards the election. People are unable to afford gas. People are unable to afford food. And these were directly on account of Biden administration policies. It was not because some horrible drought was occurring and that there was a legitimate reason. We were being forced in to that position by our government. Now we have an option to get out. And so for me, I would say that there's a whole new world of optimism on the horizon. And you can see it amongst people that would have been, you could have asked them for the past 20 years. They would have told you they were Democrats. Now, well, they're not anymore. That, or they just decided they forgot to vote that day. And now they're particularly optimistic. So I do see that, Mike. How about you?
Mark Z, original Mark Z. Same question.
Everything's not fixed just because he's been inaugurated, but yeah, definitely November 5th. We felt like we had an answer. In other words, we know where we're headed again. A lot of the unknown went away. We don't necessarily know all the steps to getting there, but we finally had hope. In other words, somebody turned on the light way down at the end of the tunnel and we could see our way out. Before then, I mean, yeah, a lot of people, just, zombies.
Oh, I like
No
that
hope.
explanation.
Nothing's going to get better.
Run for the light, Carolyn. Run for the light. As we all run for the light. No, I agree with this, and I've been saying this since November 6th, because in the morning I woke up, and we stayed on air. I know you guys were on air. I was not going to bed until they called it. And I was already calling it. My guy, my stats guy, Don from the Bronx, Don was going, Mike, he's won. It's over. We were watching two counties in Pennsylvania. We were watching Bucks County, and I forget the other county. And all he had to do was beat by 2 points his share in Bucks County in 2020. And when he got to the 2 points, and then it went to 3, I'm like, call it, dude. It's over. Because Bucks County was the bellwether county in Pennsylvania. And sure enough, it turned out to be true. So, and all of us, because we had been burned in 2020, we stayed up until 2 o'clock in the morning. And then, the water pipe broke, and then the owl swoops in, and then the mailman delivers 700,000 pounds of ballots and what have you here. So we had all been burned in 2020. And no one in my crew, and there were 5 of us, no one was yawning, no one was going to bed. So I only got to sleep like 2.5, 3 hours to get up the next morning and do the show. And I punted on the first hour. But I came in here and none of us were really tired. And we were just so ecstatic to be here. And it did feel like something had definitely changed. Mark Z, original Mark Z, you may remember this. I reckon this, and I think that this is actually accurate because I was there. I lived it. I was a young man. I was 18 when Ronald Wilson Reagan was elected. My first election, I was 18. I got to vote in 1980, and I voted for Reagan. And I didn't vote for him because my father told me to. My mother hated Reagan. I voted for Reagan because I thought he actually said things that made me think, I think that this guy can actually fix the problems. And, I was one of these guys, Mark. My uncle was like paying me $3 to go sit in a gas line for 5 hours for him so he could go to work. So I drive the car down there and I go fill it so he and my dad could go off and work, and I worked with them. But, I was the gas line kid. So I actually sat in Carter's gas lines. And I remember sitting in them and going, this isn't right. This is not right. And I remember my father being in the construction business. You know what? They had to quit the construction business because no one was building houses. So you know what they got into? The demolition business, destroying things. So I saw what was going on. And this man, Ronald Reagan, I watched the debates. I was a young man. I watched the debates, and I went, I think that this Reagan guy can actually, Reagan said things that I said, that makes sense. James Earl Carter said things, I went, this guy's a flipping idiot. How in the hell did he get in there to begin with? So I remember when Reagan came in. I remember his televised addresses. I played one yesterday on the show. I said, President Trump, somebody that knows President Trump, please have him watch these Reagan addresses where he goes over the media's head and goes, I'm going to go straight to the American people with my plan. And I kind of watched what Reagan was doing, and you could see the results, right? I think we are not in a 1981 moment, because we have a printing press and lots of debt. So it's a different situation, but it's everywhere else is very similar. We're actually worse off than we were under Carter in many aspects. But I see this as a 1981 morning in America again moment. I see Trump as Reagan. He may even trump Reagan. And I see this family, this whole nucleus of a family of Trumps. And I go, like, they're all in this together. The people that are in the inner circle, you can tell they're treated like family members. This is a very large family. Families get things done, original Mark Z, young Zester. I can't wait for you to have your own family. Families get things done, and I think that they're up to the task. Now, draining the swamp, as Mark Z said, dude, I don't know. Is it going to work? I hope so. I pray so. Fixing the problem with spending, I think Trump has been yesterday sent a very clear signal to Congress. I am serious about spending. You should be too. Trade. Can you offset some inflation, some inflationary things with trade? Well, the first thing somebody's going to say is, no, everything's going to go up in price. Well, it may go up in price in the short run. But then Zester's friends, 2 years, a year and a half from now, manufacturing plants are starting back up. Down the line, things that aren't manufactured, handling plants and stuff have started back up. You know, our mutual friend, Andy Scheckman, and I talk about this, Mark. I know you probably talked about him with him. You know, I see a path that you could get out of this. You could even get out of the debt, but you got to be smart about it. But I think at the end of the day, I see this as a morning in America Part 2. And I think the prize is much bigger because the prize for failure this time may be the end of the whole damn thing, and I may be moving to the Caribbean to come hang out with you guys. By the way, I'll be that barbecue chef that you need.
um, like Reagan, we look at the time in history, and it was a renaissance, a revival. We learned to love our country again after Nam and all that. And I mean, you look at the similarities from the runaway inflation, which is just a hidden tax on the people. I mean, that's all they, every time they overprint, it's them taxing you and your children.
Mhm.
And we're coming out, Afghanistan, Iraq, these endless wars, just like we were going into that, that race in 79 for the 80, for Reagan's first term. I mean, during that, people are going to vote on November 4th. What was that? 1979, right?
1980,
Voting takes office
1980.
80. Reagan.
1980.
Yeah. They were sitting in gas lines, but they had to rotate every other day based on odd even on their plates. So they're sitting there. Reagan gave them hope. That's exactly what Trump's doing. And there's no way to explain the value of hope. Kind of like with his manifest destiny, he's giving people hope, something to strive for. It's exciting time.
I think it is.
And it's an odd one to throw into the same category, but I do think that there's a very distinct similarity between FDR, Reagan, and Trump. Not in politics, not in policy, but in how they broke through the fourth wall. They are not having conversations with the interviewer. They're not having conversations with whoever, whatever show they're on, or whatever reporter is asking them questions. They're having a conversation with the American people. The reporter, in all honesty, is just kind of playing a role. And in that way, I think that they inspired a hope because they were having a conversation with us. Franklin Delano Roosevelt's fireside chats. People felt like FDR was talking to them, not talking about them, not talking about things that weren't their problems directly into their households. And Reagan had the same power, and I think Trump has the same power. I think the big difference now with Trump's second term is that we see he's far more prepared, especially with these executive orders. These are well documented. They go through an immense amount of Supreme Court precedent, of prior executive actions, and this was all set up and ready. I think in the first term, day one, I forget, but I don't think it was more than one or two executive orders that Trump even signed. And so I think when you combine that knowledge that he's gotten and also surrounding himself with people now that are actually on his team, then now we're going to combine that ability to speak to the American people, speak on their level, with someone who's actually capable of getting it all done. And that, I think, is going to be very, very powerful because you're totally right. When it comes to this move on the tariffs and on bringing manufacturing back, it's going to cause suffering. There are going to be short-term effects. And the only way we're going to be able to get through that is, one, we start right now because we need the 2 years before the midterms. We need to start seeing some positive growth. And we have the ability with Trump for him to actually convey and speak to people. And so I'm very excited for it. And I do see that similarity between Reagan and Trump, definitely on politics. But I see it as something that's been overarching. When we've had people in these great senses of despair, the Great Depression with FDR, we needed a leader like that. We needed somebody who was talking to me, not someone who was talking to the stockbrokers.
Yeah, and I just add my own 2 cents on this. When you start bringing manufacturing back, a couple of things have to happen. You have to have capital formation, number one. Well, in this instance, you already have capital that's offshore. It's already there, and it was put there to avoid American taxation and American regulation. The bitch of it is, as these bastards in the general government of the United States actually made those conditions possible. They actually intentionally did that. So you're going to see President Trump undo as much of that as he can with the stroke of an executive pen. The executive order power is extraordinary. Most young people do not understand this. I'm sure my friend, the original Mark Z, understands this. I want to explain something to the audience. Again, it's a different kind of show here. I'm the expert. We don't need any guests as experts. I'll answer the questions for you. Ask me something about politics and governance and American history, or even about the Catholic faith, and I should be able to answer it for you, or at least get you in the neighborhood. Every cabinet secretary that President Trump is sending up for confirmation, and you all need to know this. This is Mike Church's Civics 101. I'd play the fractured fairy tale music for you. We'll get it next episode. The Attorney General of the United States doesn't have to exist. It is not in the Constitution. There's no rule that says that she or he has to actually be there. So if he or she does not have to exist, well, then why does he or she exist? Because it's a power that belongs to the president, and he is assigning it to a secretary, an administrator. Marco Rubio was confirmed as Secretary of State today. Show me in the Constitution where it says, no, I'm not talking about the 25th Amendment either. Show me in the Constitution where it says Secretary of State must be, shall be, will be, serves at. The only mention of any of these cabinet positions is in Article 2, and then there's a mention in Article 1, I think it's Section 5, about the ministers and consuls of the United States. So all, there will be a uniform rule, but no title of nobility will be granted and whatsoever have you. Marco Rubio is discharging a power that belongs to President Trump. As a matter of fact, in his little acceptance speech after J.D. Vance swore him in today, you kiddies out there will may find as fascinating and interesting. Marco Rubio in his little speech basically said what I just told you. And he said, well, here is the Trump administration policy. I'm going to give it to you. In foreign affairs, my job is to analyze everything that I'm about to do for President Trump and the American people. Does it make us stronger? Does it make us more powerful? And does it make us more prosperous? Those powers belong to Trump. The transportation secretary, unconstitutional. Congress has no authority to build anything outside of a useful building or a storehouse for ammunition and the Capitol and what have you here. Be that as it may, Transportation Secretary, that's Trump's power. Name it. AgSec, Trump's power. SecDef, Trump's power. He is the commander-in-chief, after all. Washington did not have a Secretary of Defense. Did you know that? Did you know that? Washington did not have a Secretary of Defense. It wasn't until Adams came along that he had James McHenry, who was telling him, we need he had McHenry on one hand, I forget the other guy, who was, one was saying we need to go to war with the French, the other was saying we didn't need to go to war with the French. Washington, all he had was Alexander Hamilton giving him advice. He didn't have a Secretary of Defense. You know why? Because he was the Secretary of Defense. So what you need to know about all this, when you hear executive orders can't do that, oh, yes, they can. Oh, yes, they can. He is the executor. The legislature passes a law, the president executes it. If he doesn't want to execute something that the Pelosi Congress passed, he doesn't have to. If he doesn't want to write the check, he can do what's called a rescission. That's kind of like a pocket veto. No, or a line item veto. No. Obama did it all the time. I didn't hear anybody squawking about it. You need to understand this. These people that he's appointing to these cabinet positions are doing what he could do, but he's entrusting them with the power. So when he writes an executive order about our foreign policy, that's not just suggestions to Marco Rubio. That's an order. And Rubio is going to obey. The other day when they asked Pam Bondi, let me ask her something, Madam Secretary General Bondi, should you be confirmed, Will you take his calls? Will you listen to him when he tells you to do things? And for God's sake, when he tells you to break the law, will you stand up to him and tell him no? And I'm sitting there screaming at the TV and going like, tell them to go suck it. Tell him, yes, you'll take his call. And yes, if he tells me to jump, I'm going to ask how high. It's a power that belongs to Trump. She doesn't get to make any. They're always going, oh, you're going to enforce this? She's going to go ask Trump, Mr. President, do you want me? What do you want me to do? That's why this whole nonsense about, well, no, Merrick Garland was acting in his power as the Attorney General. Biden didn't put him up to him. Like, bull crap. Bull. Absolute bull. Of course Biden told him to do it. It's Biden's power. It's not Merrick Garland's. He could fire Merrick Garland today and take over if he wanted to. This president is going to have people answer to him, and if they don't answer correctly this time around, you're fired. That's a sea change difference as well. So I think that things are going to turn out very much different, and I don't think anyone is actually prepared. You know, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter today. Trump actually fired a couple of people with a tweet. He even told the one woman, you suck at the job that you've done. Guess what? You're fired. Now, and he can't do that. It's mean. Oh, yes, he can. Oh, yes, he can. You know, I love it when he told Kristen, what's her name for NBC News? Kristen Welch. Oh gosh, the woman that interviewed him. When he went, say stop right there. Wait. You do know. I know you work for NBC and you're pretty stupid, but it's okay. I'm here. We'll go ahead and finish. You do know that I'm the chief law enforcement officer on the continent, right? You know that. That's my power. I am the. He told her that. I'm going like, he gets it. He absolutely freaking gets it. And that's why, you know, you were talking about earlier, Zest, you were talking about Franklin Delano Obama Roosevelt. I can't stand Franklin Delano Obama Roosevelt, but you're right. He took his case to the American people, but he lied to them. He was a con artist at the end of the day. You know, he was stricken with polio, and he couldn't stand up, and no one knew it. They would wheel him out to places where he would speak, and he would have a curtain. And he would actually physically had to stand there with bars on the inside of the dais, which is why he had such a big one, a tradition that we still have to this day. You can't see the president's arms. That's because of Roosevelt, because they had rigged steel bars in there so he could hold himself up. So when he's talking, he's actually physically propping himself up. And they had a brace also that ran down his back and basically locked his legs in place. So the guy was a con artist. He was a liar. I think he was a communist at the end of the day. And he is responsible for allowing a communist to infiltrate the American government. Be that as it may, the Zester was right. He did go over the media's head, and he talked directly to the people, and a lot of people agree with him. He was elected 4 times. So we're setting off on a course here that I do not believe most MAGA people completely understand. So you're lucky. You have Mike Church, Liberty on Main Street. I think that'll be a pretty good first episode, guys. What do you think?
Hey, I think so. No, thank you so much for that one, Mike. And no, definitely looking forward to getting to quiz you and to listen to your take on a lot of the issues that are going to be going on with this administration, because it looks like we're going to need a lot of that U.S. history, a lot of an understanding of how the political system works, because he's going to get tested in the courts by everything. It's going to be important to have you, Mike.
No, he is going to get tested. There's another thing. He gets to fill judgeships. He filled, I want to say almost 300 when he was president. There are a lot of cases that are going to come up. And these people are smart. They're not stupid. They are going to manipulate these things, and they're, of course, going to try and get these cases heard where they know there are friendly judges. Again, this is the will of the presidency. This is the power of the presidency. They let Biden get away with almost everything. The only court that stopped Biden was the Supreme Court. And what did Biden do? Go F yourself, he said. I'm going to forgive the student loans anyway. So I don't want to hear, you know what, actually, I do want to hear I want to hear Scratch Ann Reed crying about it. I want to hear the little boy with the funny glasses, Rick Madcow, crying about it. I want to see him whining into their weak tea on CNN. I want all of them to be miserable. I want it to be like an episode of Monsters, Inc. We're going to just bottle all this anger and take it in. Because you know what? You deserve everything that you're about to get, but it doesn't have to be that way, because you can convert and come over to our side. Try loving your country. Try loving your fellow citizens for a change, and you don't have to suffer for the next 4 years, or hopefully in perpetuity, because I hope that these things get fixed so that they last through my children and grandchildren's lives. So yeah, we'll talk about all that here on the Mike Church Show here on Liberty on Main Street. And guys, I'm very grateful for the opportunity. You know, I host a show every weekday. You guys can all watch it 3 hours a day. I did exactly what you just saw. If you're intrigued by it at all, I'm on the Crusade Radio Network at crusadechannel.com. Show starts 6 a.m. Central. I realize for many of you that you don't roll out of bed until the crack of 9, but you can get it as a podcast or as a video replay as well at same site. You just find me on YouTube, Crusade Radio Network, Mike Church Show. They're very much looking forward to being here every week with you guys and seeing some of the other hosts that are going to populate this channel, because I happen to know who some of them are. And yeah, this should be a very fertile debating ground. This Liberty on Main Street. So thanks for the opportunity and thanks for the invite. Appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you so much, Mike. Thank you. And I know Pop's down there as well.
Absolutely. We appreciate you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Zest, when I finally get to meet you, I will kick your ass in Miss Pac-Man. I was once upon a time, this guy right here was a second place runner-up in the World Miss Pac-Man Championship. So I can get you to levels on that game that you don't even know exist.
It's all in the thumbs. It's all in the thumbs.
I probably, and this is back when it only cost $0.25 to play the game, and you get 2 games for $0.25. I spent hundreds of dollars playing Miss Pac-Man, but it was one of the most fun games. It was a great way to spend a afternoon wherever it was that I was back then. I think I was in Chicago on the racetrack. Love that game. They don't make them like that anymore. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. That game is actually eye-hand coordination, very difficult to master.
It is.
I'll be looking forward to it. I'll have to start practicing before you arrive. Make certain I'm competitive. Maybe we can try and do a radio show or an interview while we also compete on Miss Pac-Man. See how well we can keep the conversation going.
Do you know that you can get to a level where you bite the pill in Miss Pac-Man and the only thing they do is reverse course?
I had no idea.
Oh, yeah.
You're telling me that, though. I'm feeling pretty certain that I'm not going to win.
Once you eat the apple screen, now you're in Miss Pac-Man, master of Miss Pac-Man land. I'll show you, young man. Stick around. Stick with me, kid. You can learn a lot. Hey, guys, thank you very much. This is going to be great. I hope that we entertained our audience and gave them enough to chew on, so you'll come back next week. So for Mark, the original Mark Z, and for the Zester, it's Mike Church signing off, saying keep it tuned right here to Liberty on Main Street, and we will see you very soon. God bless you. Merry keep, all of you.
God bless.
God bless.
Where hands meet hands and hearts unite, through storm and calm we find the light. A place to stand, a place to grow, with faith and truth is all we know. Liberty on Main Street, where hope runs free in every step, in you and me. Together we rise, together we keep the flame of freedom that never sleeps.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty on Main Street.
challenge high